everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sheri Pallas. For this week's show, we are talking with Karen Schock, who wrote a beautiful book of poetry about her deconstruction journey and dismantling the toxic theology she was taught. Thank you for joining us, and I am looking forward to all of your comments and questions. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, grant StreamYard access so we can see your name when you comment or have a question. Please keep all comments and questions related to the show topic. And please remember that this is a safe space. Let's give a shout out to our top sponsors. Ruth, Kirsten, Ray, Michelle, and Heidi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. And if you like the show, you can help support it by going to sheripallas.com. There you will find literally dozens of ways to help. Thank you in advance, and thank you for welcoming us into your home and joining the conversation. I appreciate you all. We are getting close to the Wild Goose Festival, and we will be doing a live show there, July 13th through the 16th. My show is actually on Saturday at 4 o'clock. So come watch and be part of the show. Last week, we did a pre-Wild Goose show where we talked all about it. So if you don't know, go watch last week's show or go to wildgoosefestival.org and get more information and your tickets. As a Fireside Peep, you will get $50 off. Just use discount code Sheri. I hope to see you there. Okay, try not to cry. You guys, this is our 100th show. This has been so humbling for me. When this started in March of 2021, I was ecstatic that I had 12 shows booked. That was unreal to me. Now, 100 shows later, this show has become a highlight of my entire life. Starting this, I repeated the cliche, if I can only help one person, it will be worth it. I measure the show's success in the changing of lives, and I know that that has happened. I've received private messages telling me so. I cannot even describe what an honor that is. But it was never about me. I just put this together. It was about the more than 120 guests who've shared their wisdom, experiences, and authenticity. It was about you because you kept showing up. So did I. As I've said, without you, the audience, I would just be talking to myself. You have helped me with the show topics. You have supported me financially, spiritually, and by just being here. I am so very proud of never shying away from a tough topic and the loving nature of the challenges my guests and I have posed. I could go on and on with my gratitude, love, and honor to be the host of this show, but I will totally start crying. And before I welcome our beautiful guests, I must give some shout outs. Tim Hammett, thank you for pushing me to do this show. It changed my life. Amanda Garrett, thank you for helping me with the name. Ana Lucas Garcia, my beloved producer and friend. Ruth, Michelle, Heidi, Ray, David, Kirsten, and the countless others who help financially, but more importantly, their friendships. And again, thank you for all of your input, suggestions, and watching the show. And I need to apologize to the people who took the time to send me their thoughts and videos to share on this episode. I failed you, and I am so very sorry. I'm not at home. You may have noticed the different background. I'm pet sitting for a few weeks, and it was just too busy to put anything together. But thank you so much for sharing them with me. They literally warmed my heart and made me smile. In the future, I will try to do something super cool with them. Again, I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. Thank you. I am so proud that this is our 100th show. Okay, enough housekeeping. Let's meet our guests and get smarter. And unfortunately, I don't have a second monitor tonight, so I can't even show you the picture that I did for her. But Karen Schock is the author of Too Much and Not Enough and the host of the Sacred Thoughts podcast. She believes that being honest and telling our stories is where we learn and that we are not alone. Welcome, Karen.
Yay.
I
Congratulations.
am so glad you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's so cool.
It's unreal. It's really unreal. I mean, after like 5 or 6 shows, I was like, holy shit, I have a show.
I'm 3 shows in. I'm 3 shows into my YouTube podcast thing. So 97 more to go, and I'll say,
so it's I can't even. And I am so thankful for everybody who just participates, whether it be no fire on the TV. Yeah, again, I'm not home. Brent, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the 100. I appreciate you all. The fire's out tonight. So, and will be for the next few weeks, but I'm trying. So taking the show on the road is what we can say. So Karen, thank you so much. I want to show the book because I don't have a double monitor, so I can't even do that. But this book is your poetry of your deconstruction. What started it? How did you even start writing this masterpiece?
Okay. Yeah. And for you to say it's poetry is a crazy thing for me because I didn't think of it as poetry until my book was being edited by one of my good friends. As she was editing it, she's an English teacher for 25 years, high school English teacher. And I was like, that one.
Wait a minute. Are you using Anna?
No.
Oh, okay. You sounded like Anna Maria.
Anna. No.
Yeah.
I'm using Abby. Her name is Abby, and she's one of my good friends from high school.
Okay.
And I said something about, the one, I don't know how I said something about kind of poetry. And she's like, if you don't start calling it poetry, she's like, you are a poet and this is poetry. And I was like, okay. So thank you for calling it poetry.
You're welcome.
It just started by me. I've been journaling my whole life. Well, diaries when I was a little girl, and then journaling all through, all the whole 53 years practically. And I'm trying to think, it was probably when my dad passed away in 2012, I really started to write. I kind of got a blog, and he was in hospice at our house, and I was writing every day, kind of writing on Facebook and giving updates. And I realized people really loved reading my stuff. They were like, oh, you write really well. I had no idea. And so then I just kind of started writing easy things. And once you got a dog issue?
We have dogs fighting here. Hold on.
I got you. I understand.
Ow. Sorry. They made their appearance. So sorry.
I got it. I understand. My dog could come in at any moment too. So I started writing one poem that I wrote, I think it was in the summer of 2016. And I was going through some severe anxiety and depression. And my doctor had upped my meds. And I didn't know why I was feeling so weird, but it was because we found out later my meds had gotten, all messed up. But I felt like I woke up in the morning, couldn't get out of bed. And I just felt like I kind of want to end it. We're going real deep, real quick.
That's okay.
For it, Sheri, right? Yeah. So that's the only time. I never thought that before, and I never have thought that since. But that morning, and I can just remember thinking, listen, like, everybody would be better off without me. This journey has been one of like bringing everybody else down with my depression or down with my anxiety, and my kids are grown, and I wouldn't even know how to do anything like that, but the thought scared me. Right. Yeah. And so I called my niece, and she came over. She's one of my best friends. She came over and called her therapist. I didn't have a therapist at the time. Got me an appointment for the next morning, called my doctor, got me some food, and gave me some hope. And then about a week later, I wrote about that on Facebook. And I couldn't believe how many people just came out of the woodwork, like started messaging me saying, thank you. There were a lot of people who wrote on there like that they didn't understand. Like, I don't understand, never had any thoughts like that. But there were way more people who were messaging me and saying, I do understand. And thank you for saying something.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I just started writing. And of course, everything got crazy politically, and everything got yeah, and then my faith was just tanking at that time. And I got braver and braver with it as far as that kind of thing goes. And then I met Keith Giles. I was in one of his Square One groups
Okay.
for deconstructing and reconstructing. And that first day I told my story, and it just said, I've lost my voice. Like, I used to be able to speak. I spoke for women's retreats and all kinds of things. Never to the men, by the way. But once I started to question my faith, once I started to say it out loud, the questions I was having about hell and all that kind of stuff, then it just became one of those things where I remember being at a Bible study at a pretty progressive church. It was a book club. It wasn't even a Bible study. And one of my friends, sweet, precious lady, I said something about, I don't even know if hell's real. And she was like, you can say that here, but I wouldn't ever want you to say that, like in front of college students or high school students.
Oh, wow.
And at that point I went home and I said, I'm done. Like I told my husband, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, I can't speak anymore. And so I just really felt like I lost my voice. And that's kind of what I said.
Well, I mean, I don't know that you lost it, but she asked you to get rid of it.
Yeah, kind of. Yes, I'm kind of like, my voice got kicked to the curb.
Yeah, I mean, she's like, shh, shh,
There was a whole lot of that. There was
Wow.
a whole lot of shh. There's been a whole lot of that in my life. So this past weekend, I spoke at an Awaken event in Nashville, Tennessee. And that's the first time I've gotten up and I've gotten to go in front of men and actually speak. So.
And how were you received?
It was beautiful. It was so good. It was the first thing I said. I said, just so you know, guys, this is the first time I've done this. Number one. So, and you're free to get up and leave if you think you'll be in sin by sitting under me. And then I said, and also I promise you, I'm just going to tell you my story. I'm not going to teach you a thing. I promise you won't learn a thing under me. And I also said, I didn't have a pastor to look over my notes. Keith just said, go for it. You have a half an hour. And I said, so you're going to get what you're going to get and enter at your own risk. And it was wonderfully received.
Well, I actually saw a comment to that where one of the gentlemen said, you lied. I learned something.
Yes. You saw that? Yeah. I love that.
Don't ever underestimate yourself like that.
I guess not, right?
So what was the story you told?
Just my whole story of deconstruction. And I don't even love to use that word anymore, but just trying to be, also, I had just seen the Duggars. I had just seen Shiny Happy People, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a show on that.
Okay, yeah. So I had just watched that. We homeschooled our kids. There were so many things in that, especially in episode 2, when they talked about all of the disciplining and the purity culture stuff. Like, we were just into all of that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So, and
it was
also
so triggering.
Say that again.
It was so triggering.
Oh.
My mom used to, and I don't want to get off onto a tangent about this, but my mom used to say, you're such a mercy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wait, what does that mean? You're such a mercy.
Have you not gone through the whole series? They talk about the different gifts.
Oh, the gift of mercy. Right. Yes.
Yeah. So she was something else, but it was always said in such a derogatory term. You're such a mercy. Meaning I cared about other people.
Right?
How dare I?
How dare you? Yeah, I think that would be me too, probably, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went through that stage where several of my friends were actually, and family members had gone to a Bill Gothard conference, that was near our town. Mm-hmm. My husband and I didn't go, but everybody was talking about it. And then we had different couples that were signing up to be in the IBLP, whatever, ATI, I don't know. And we just weren't that. So then I remember standing in the nursery one day at church, and all the women are talking about starting to wear dresses, like starting to wear skirts and blue jean skirts and all that kind of stuff, and getting their daughters to wear them.
Oh
And I was
God.
just like, guys, I'm not doing it. You can't make me. I'm not. I was like, I don't want to be Amish. We live around a lot of, and they're like, oh, we think it'll be nice. It'll be good. And I'm just like, I'm not. And you guys can just call me the homeschool misfit. Like, that's what I am. And from that point on, I was the one who let my kids watch Disney. I was the one who.
Oh, you heretic.
I liked NSYNC at the time, Yeah. So, but also we started to really study Proverbs 31, The Excellent Wife by Martha Peace, that book. And I'm telling you, I just wasn't that.
Yeah.
I wasn't any of that. Like anytime I get up, and the sun's shining, I'm like, crap, I'm not up before dawn, and I didn't know how to sew, and I wasn't a great cook, and, and I had a loud mouth. I wasn't the gentle and quiet spirit, and I had anxiety and, all the things. And so many of the other women were so good at it all. And I just wasn't.
Yeah. But I mean, that was your belief. They're really not.
True. I guess.
It's all an act. I mean, Proverbs 31 is the source of so much shame, as well as aspirations, right?
Yeah.
Because the people who can step into that role end up being more superior, and the rest of us should be burned at the stake. It is such it is such a source of shame and toxicity in theology to demand that a woman just fit into those and live for a man.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that really hit me in watching the Shiny Happy People was that not until probably my 40s did I realize I wasn't here for a man. Wow. And that seems insane, right?
Yeah, well, right.
I mean, I really thought that I had to find a man. That was, you learn to walk, you learn to talk, you learn to cook, you find a man.
Yep.
And not until I realized that that was wrong, that I would choose a man, that I would want a man to be into my life, as opposed to checking a box because that's what the religion said.
Right.
Because of that, I was entering into abusive relationships because they chose me. If a man was interested in me, they chose me. And so, like Shiny Happy People, I had to succumb and go, okay, well, God put him in my life. I had to do this. And I was in abusive relationship after abusive relationship.
Right.
Never conforming to the Proverbs 31 woman. Surprise.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. What can you do?
Right. But not until I realized that I was not put on this earth to be with a man did I start to even own myself. Did I even start to own my life and say, because we are second-class citizens according to this toxic theology.
Yeah, it's so true. And my husband was not that way. My husband was not abusive.
Great.
My husband was just trying to find his way because he didn't fit what the men were supposed to be, and so I was more the leader of our family than he was. And so I was always pushing him, are you going to get up and have a quiet time? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? You better lead us, and to the point where one of our pastors at one point, when I was going through some anxiety and depression, he looked right at Kevin right in front of me and said, if you could get your act together and lead her better, she would not have anxiety and depression. And so we walked out of his house that night, and I looked at Kevin in the car and I was like, yeah, start leading me. So I'm leading him still to lead me. And then when we learned, like you said, and it was in our 40s when we learned that we make a real good team and it doesn't have to be any of that.
Yeah.
Man, our marriage is good. But it
is fantastic.
It struggled while I'm trying to be this thing. He never wanted me to be that. I mean, and we would go to like, we would lead, we were leaders. We would lead small group ministries. We would lead all kinds of things, youth. And I remember when we had small group stuff going on, that was my day that I would clean my house, because I had small group coming over that night, Thursdays, and get the kids, let's go, we're going to clean. And then I'd make the meat part of the meal or whatever. And then when all the men and women would come in, the women would come into the kitchen and, start to put things together. And I would be like, I want to go over there with the men that are standing over in the living room, and I want to talk theology. You know how you were saying, standing around the campers and talking theology? That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
My head was over there. And so that was just always a thing for me to try to figure out, who am I really? And where's my place in all of this?
Well, and with toxic theology, authenticity is not part of it, right? Once you realized that when you are authentic and your husband is authentic, it works.
Yeah.
When they ask you to be anything other than what you really are, to fit into this cookie cutter method that technically was just orchestrated by the patriarchy,
right?
We're going to have failed relationships. We're going to have suicidal thoughts. We're going to have depression and anxiety. Only when we are living authentically and owning who God made us to be, does that happiness occur. I mean, again, I always had guy friends. I just like you, I didn't want to be in the kitchen talking about makeup and boots and all of those things. I wanted to be out with the guys watching football or, talking with them. And that didn't fit. Like you said, being this type of woman. And I tried really. My parents really wanted me to be a quiet girl.
Yes.
I'm not.
No, my pastors really wanted me to be a quiet girl.
Yeah. And that is so toxic. I mean, I don't mean to minimalize anything, but what difference is it from them saying to the LGBTQ community, change? They are asking the LGBTQ community to fit into their cookie cutter, just like they're asking us to.
Yep. I totally felt that way. Like with all of my begging God, I would just beg him to change me. I would just be on my floor, on my dirty bathroom floor, and crying out to him, God, please make me different. Please, please get rid of this fear, because I lived with like an OCD. I didn't know I just recently got diagnosed with ADHD, which totally makes sense. And, the OCD came from like, I just always thought something is really wrong with me health-wise, because it was my first panic attack happened, back in the late 1900s when I, after my second child.
I'm laughing over late 1900s. Yep. Holy shit, really? We're saying that?
That's what I'm saying. Yep, guaranteed.
Last century, okay.
Well, and people didn't know what it was back then. People didn't, my doctor said it was anxiety, but nobody knew what that was. And my husband surely didn't know how to handle me back then. But that whole thing has been a journey. And, when you live with anxiety and depression, I mean, at one point, and I talk about this in the book, at one point I had people in my church praying over me. Like I was on my knees and they were all around me praying for the demon of fear to go away from me, to get out of me. I had a demon, and I'm going to be honest, I wanted it to freaking work. Like, please, because that would have been easier, right? Than a bunch of therapy and meds and meditation and
totally,
right? Like, just get out. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, let's say it's a demon. We'll say that. And it was shameful.
Totally.
And I always felt like
you.
But now that I look back at it, now that I don't believe in that stuff anymore, it's funny how that doesn't even come up. Like when you stop thinking that there are demons, like you don't see that around anymore. Yeah. It's like, like you start realizing there's actually, you can breathe and meditate and do all that. And yeah.
Well, I think I think humans are lazy as a general rule.
Yeah.
And it is so lazy and so easy to blame an outside source for all of our problems, whether that be God, demons, angels, they get the credit or the curse. And then we don't have to take any responsibility for it because the devil did it. So instead of saying, you have a clinical medical condition that you should probably talk to your doctor about, they say, let's cast out the demons.
Right. Right. And then at one point, I did make an appointment with my doctor, and he got me in with a counselor outside of, this was back in 2010, probably. He got me in with a counselor outside of our church body. We were in a pretty small church body at the time. He got me outside of it, an appointment with an awesome guy, but it took a month for me to get into him. And the day before my appointment, I was on the phone with our pastor about something else. And I said, hey, I have a counseling appointment tomorrow. He knew, obviously, he's the same one who told my husband to get his act together and I wouldn't have anxiety. But I told him I had a counseling appointment, and he's like, with who? And I said, this guy that's outside of, I didn't say outside of our church, but I said the guy's name, and he's like, wait a minute. Like, you really should stay in-house for counseling. Like, we have good counselors in this church.
Oh, wow.
One of them being his wife. But he was like, you really should stay inside of our church body for this. And I was so confused because, like the Duggars, like the Bill Gothard thing, I had learned the umbrella thing. Mm-hmm. So, and the umbrella one that I learned, pastor was in there. So Christ, then pastor, then husband, then wife, then kids, right?
Yeah.
And so if he said that, then we better do that. And I called my husband. I got off the phone with the pastor. I called my husband, and my husband was like, you're going to this appointment. Like, no way.
Good.
Yeah. And I did, and sat across from the counselor, and with tears streaming down my eyes, telling him about the stuff that was going on in this church, the crap. And he was like, why don't you leave? And I said, because we had just been a part of a church split 2 years earlier. And I'm like, with another church, I'm like, we're not. So then when that church split happened, of course, then we went to one that had elders and, more authority. We felt like what we needed was more authority, which was ridiculous. Right. But that's what I thought I needed. And I said, we're not going to be church hoppers. Like, I can't, I've got tears. We can't go to another church. And within 2 months of my counseling, we hopped on over to another church. The sad part is that church was a Mark Driscoll.
Church. So from the frying pan to the fire.
Yeah. And we're still good friends with a lot of the people there. We did learn we could drink whiskey at that church. We weren't drinking at all before that, or cussing. And then I learned that I could cuss at that church too. Turns out at a Mark Driscoll Acts 29 church, you can drink whiskey and smoke cigars and cuss. So,
okay.
Yeah. But I realized real quick too, that Mark Driscoll's a big bully and John MacArthur's a big bully, and I didn't want any more to do with them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you go from church to church and it wavers on ethics and morals of what will send you to hell and what won't, like whiskey or, cigars or, cursing, there's no love there. And that's what church is supposed to be. That's what eliminates the toxic theology is love.
You know what? Exactly. Perfect love is what casts out fear. And I was using, and the pastors were using, and all the theology I was reading was using fear to drive out fear.
Yeah.
My whole life had been a God of, from the time I was 9 and saw the movie A Thief in the Night, about the rapture stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And saw somebody get their head chopped off in that movie. My view of God became so afraid. Like, okay, but he loves me, but I'm afraid. And then it just got driven. And what you asked earlier about the LGBTQ plus stuff, like, yes, I related to that so much because of the time that I would spend asking God to change me.
Yeah.
Like, please, God, just make me somebody different. Please, God, just change me. And I know I don't even pretend to understand.
Like I said, I don't want to minimize.
I don't either. I
yeah.
don't either. But I remember
it's a theme with the church, though. Change who you are.
Right. Right.
Not ethics, not morals, who you were born as.
Exactly. And I told I write about this in the book, but I told one of my good friends the one time I said, I think that's why I have a heart for the marginalized, because I always feel like I'm a misfit. Exactly. I always feel like I don't fit in. And I just want to tell people that they're loved. And my friend, who was like a coach at that time, said, you need to know you're loved by God, or you need to love yourself before you can even give that to another person. And I'm just like, oh, because I had spent so many years, the Reformed theology of you're nothing, you're totally depraved, you deserve hell.
Exactly.
When I'm not meeting the Proverbs 31 woman, which says, what is an excellent wife? An excellent wife who can find, and she's worth more than precious jewels, or whatever it says. Okay, well, I'm not that. And so what am I worth? And then along comes John Piper and says, well, nothing, you deserve hell, actually. And, the whole, like Keith Giles would say, worm theology. I'm like, that just hit home for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly what I am. And if you read my journals, there's 10, 15 years in there of me saying, Lord, I know I don't deserve this. I know I deserve nothing. I know I deserve hell. And we would teach our kids that.
It's truly aligning with an abusive spouse. They do the exact same thing. It's, you suck, you're worthy, but you're lucky I love you.
Yeah.
You'll never find anyone else that'll love you the way I love you. And that is pure toxicity. That is pure mental abuse, spiritual abuse. It's abuse all the way around, especially because love is the key component, and you can't give love from an empty source. So if you are told your entire life you're nothing but a piece of shit, you're worthless, and you have no reason to even be here. Yeah. When those suicidal thoughts start coming in, it's like, oh my God, you're right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I suck. Let's just go. I mean, my mom at age 54, died of cancer because she wanted to go see Jesus. She refused to get chemo because she wanted to go see Jesus. So this doctrination in this enabled her and justified her to technically commit suicide. I mean, I begged her, please don't do this. Get some treatment. And she was, forgive the really bad saying, but hell bent on getting to see Jesus.
That makes
forgoing her life, forgoing me, her grandson, anything else, because that's the only thing that mattered. So when I've gotten dark thoughts, I immediately go back to, well, that's what I was taught. You know, everything is, nothing I hear matters. The next life is the only thing that matters. I can't love because I can't love myself. And these neighbors who are gay, Black, and Muslim, fuck them.
Yeah.
That is, it's so destructive. It's antisocial. It's anti-Christ. It's, it produces the society that we have now.
Yeah, exactly. White nationalism. Yep. All of it. It's crazy.
So what was, I know in writing my book, that's not out yet. So congratulations on getting yours out.
Okay.
What was that part of it where you went, oh my God, I'm doing this. This is actually going to get out. And when you realized that you are actually embodying everything that you wrote?
I still think I keep asking if any of it's real. And he said, let's do a book. It's time to do a book. I sent him a big, I probably sent him 300 of my posts, because he's like, let's put your posts together. Let's make a book out of it. And he was like, okay, let's, you need to cut that down. So I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out which one, minimalizing, trying to figure out which ones bring me joy, which ones for this one. And so I clearly have enough for another book. I took out all the ones about my parents, most of them. And I have so many. My mom passed away in 2020 then. She was 89 years old when she passed away. And I talk about that in this book, about how much I questioned their faith, because their faith was just a simple Methodist, Jesus loves me, this I know. And I was so theologically, and I remember one time I was out in the living room with my older siblings, and we were all kind of fighting about theological stuff. And she walked out from the kitchen. She was making us milkshakes, and she walked out and she said, "Do you know what? I'm so glad that I'm not smart enough to know anything you all are talking about. All I know is Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. That's all I know." And I remember,
which it doesn't.
Right.
But I digress.
And but I remember thinking, she's probably not even going to heaven. Like, she doesn't, we didn't know about the 1040 window when I was a kid. We didn't know about going to the nations. There were no Bible studies. There were no, do they even know? Do they care? Are they giving 10%? Whatever. Like, and as they, then my deconstruction starts to happen, and then they pass away, and I hold their hands, both of their hands, as they enter into wherever they're going, whatever that is. I'm pretty sure my mom went to the arms of Jesus and my dad. I'm pretty sure. But I just realized, like, it's so much more. It's so simple. It's so much more simple than that. All that to say, my next book, I think I'm going to put a bunch of those. I've got two different ideas, but one of them is I'm going to put all their posts together and just talk about their faith. And yeah, how much I learned from them. I got pregnant when I wasn't married. And of course, my husband and I would tell our story then after we did get married, because I led him to the Lord then so that we could get married. Right. And, but then we would speak at True Love Waits stuff, and we would tell our story, and we would make it sound was so terrible, And so in the book, I write it like, no, it wasn't so bad. It was actually pretty good. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, like we had to make it look so bad though, because those kids shouldn't do what we did, even though it worked out for us, like, kind of was fun, but don't do that, But I had to go back, and I have an apology from a True Love Waits leader. I have that in this book, and I have, a poem about purity and just all of those things. Because how did I get there? I don't know, Sheri. I just went off.
Well, I think when you embody a toxic theology, there's a part of you that knows it's bullshit, right? Yep. And like you said, with your speech, you had to twist it and turn it to go, oh, we were sinners then, but now, things are magical. Well, you couldn't get up on a pulpit and go, man, we had the best sex ever. That's why I'm pregnant. I love this guy. And that's what it is. Yeah. Everybody would, grass, Yep. But in that actuality, that's what they really want anyway.
You know what? You're so right. And
every adult on the planet wants good sex. And, and if you can do it and not have the shame and everything involved, but when you know that toxic theology is crap, it starts to manifest in other ways. Yep. And it brings me back to my mom. She was literally on her deathbed just a few days before she died. And she grabbed my arm with all of the strength she had. And in pure anxiety and in a pure panic, she said, what if I got it wrong? What if I worshiped the wrong God? What if I did the wrong things? And she had been disowning me since I was 12. At this point, I was 30. So, I mean, I had to work through all of my pain of her toxic theology and deconstruct her beliefs to even reassure myself that I wasn't a piece of shit. Because if your mother's saying it and it's ordained by God, where do you go from there? And I looked at her with such sadness and such grace and said, Mom, if there is a God,
Yeah.
He will applaud your effort. You tried really, really hard. And I was thinking, you tried so hard you got rid of your daughter.
Yeah.
But I would never have said that to her in that situation. But it
Which
really
would have been
showed me.
biblical. It would have been biblical for her to do that.
Yeah.
She tried so hard that she listened to what that said. Do you know, like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
It hurt my life. It hurt my
Yep.
son's life. It hurt her life. I mean,
Yeah.
all of the people that she loved and were in her life, she would get rid of if they didn't align. I mean, I was talking to my cousin earlier, and I was thinking of her grandmother was my aunt, and my mother and her sister-in-law started fighting over theology, and they were barely speaking for more than 30 years.
I hate
My
it.
mother missed out on all of the relationships with her nieces and nephews and cousins and everything because my Aunt Lynn wasn't an evangelical and thought that
Yeah.
it was dangerous.
Yeah. No, for
Now,
sure.
I don't know my
Enough.
family. I don't know any of that because they were sinners. And now I'm talking to my cousin about music festivals and where she should go and what she's doing. That would never even occurred under the toxic theology that was occurring in my mom's life.
Right.
She never could have loved the way that she needed to love, which is supposed to be biblical, which is supposed to be from Jesus, because of all of the doctrine and because of all of the lies that she was told.
Exactly.
I wish she knew her magnificence, because she did not live long enough to get over that shame. She did not live long enough to deconstruct and say, although she did right before she was diagnosed with cancer the second time, she called me with this huge awakening and said, I'm so sorry. And she was diagnosed with cancer 2 weeks later and died within the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 53 and that's young. 54. Like, wow. That's cool that she apologized. I mean, I
think she learned her lessons and it was time for her to go. Although, again, it was by her own hand, technically.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think that in that moment of apology, that she truly loved me for the first time. After that, the power was eliminated. After that, her control was eliminated. It was, I just love you.
Yeah.
And I only had it for a year.
Okay. You had it. Wow. Okay. I want to hear more of your story. Is this what your book is about? Can I interview you now?
Soon. It's still at the editors, but yes, soon.
Okay.
It's in there.
Okay.
But my point is that toxic theology affects generations.
Yes.
And it goes across the board for families. So when one person, you look at the rotten apples spoil the whole bin. Mm-hmm. If you look at toxic theology like that, and the way that you must deconstruct just to find love within yourself and to find the beauty within yourself, that ends up being the biggest part of deconstruction, I think.
Yes.
Is just saying, you know what? That theology that I believed that told me that I was a piece of shit and that I was worthy of nothing is not true. It's just not true. That was never the intention. That was never the make. That is ego. That is the patriarchy. That is governmental control trying to keep you down.
Right. And I think about how far in I went with all of that. So I think it would be easy for people to think, oh, you're just deconstructing. You know how they say, it's sexy, Matt Chandler. It's sexy. Oh, okay. This is really sexy.
Crying on the bathroom floor going, I wasted 40 years of my life with this shit is not sexy.
It's not sexy, Matt. None of this has been sexy. Okay. No. And what happened with the Duggars? Not sexy.
No.
What happened with Hillsong? Not all of it. Let's name them all. Yeah.
The patriarchy thinks it's sexy.
No, now I lost my train of thought. I went off on thinking about Matt Chandler.
What was I saying? Deconstructing.
Oh, just how, like, it wasn't just flighty. It was years of me saying, no, actually think about it. Can somebody please? I'm
Yeah.
thinking about a billion years and then another billion years of hell and then another like eternal conscious torment. Somebody think about it with me. That makes God like a monster. And now you're telling me he chooses some and he actually doesn't choose others and nobody has a choice in that? Like, somebody think about it. Like, I just wanted somebody to actually think, and it would be like, well, we can't know God. God's ways are not
Ever
our
too
ways.
serious phase.
And yeah, like, I mean, I went deep into it to come out the other side. You know, I didn't just go, I don't care anymore. No, this was grueling. This was nothing. There was nothing beautiful or easy or sexy about it for me to get to where I am right now. And unfortunately, it's hard for me to, when I think about the people that I know and I love that are still in it, it's really hard for me to think about them ever coming out because it's really hard for me to, I know they won't watch this. I know they haven't read my book. And if they read my book, which isn't that bad, but if they read it, they'll be reading it to judge it. You know, like it's not gonna like to see how far off I am. And it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when you have that stupid umbrella.
Yes.
And such an abusive God, it lays a platform for you to choose abusive men.
Yes.
And not until I got into my adulthood did I start going, okay, this God that you paint is just like this guy I can't stand. So why would I worship? And a lot of it's family, you know, like crazy uncle or something. But, you know, it's like you are saying to me, and when my mom would say, you're going to hell, you're taking my grandson with you, you're going to burn. I would say, your God is an asshole. Why would you even do this? Obviously, a lot more respectful and more timid and broken down than I am saying now. My mother always
wasn't that sexy.
Yeah, not sexy at all. It was
right.
It was a way to survive. I don't know that I would have survived had I not deconstructed. I don't know that I would have had the strength just to keep going or even survive the tumultuous life that my fear and insecurity created. I mean, I have some crazy stories because I was always expecting something to happen and it did.
Right.
You know, so that fed into it. It's like, well, God must be mad again. I screwed up, you know, and I fed into it and fed into it. And not until I read Wayne Dyer's book where it says you create your own reality, I went, oh my God, that's what I've been doing this whole time. That's what religion taught me to do and create this reality where I am downtrodden, where I am scared, where I am not loving, where I'm selfish and trying to hold on to everything that I can because I'm working from an environment of fear, not love.
Yes. How I ended my talk, my story time on Saturday, because I wasn't teaching anything. I was talking about the umbrella and how I was so busy. There was so much fear to get outside of the umbrella because that's the reign of Satan, right? And so I was so busy trying to keep me under my husband and then my husband under the pastor and then my kids under me. And if I have to use a wooden spoon to keep them under me, I'll be damned, I'm going to.
Yeah.
But I was so busy doing that. I had just read a few weeks ago a book called The Illusion of Money by a guy he's a comedian, like Kyle Cease is his name.
Okay.
And somehow I got a hold of his book. I heard him like on a podcast and I got a hold of his book. And he starts to talk about it in the book right at the beginning that we all have creative genius in us. Okay. And what happens though is when life gets built around fear and we have these fears, then what we use our creative genius for, all of our creative genius, all of our creative energy goes to fight that fear. It goes to prevent whatever we're afraid of from happening.
Yeah, totally.
That's probably not even going to happen, i.e. hell. Like, I'm saying that in case anybody who knows me, I'm not just flippantly saying there is no hell. I've actually studied it now. I've actually studied that it, like study it, like actually go study it. And you'll see that there's a lot of different versions, and this eternal conscious torment one is poppycock. Anyway, I just realized, like, at some point, if I get outside of the umbrella, like, that's maybe then where creativity can happen, and where if I can just get out. And what I did, and then so at the end of my talk, I said, the great theologian Barry Manilow, and I sang, half read, I made it through the rain and found myself respected by the others who got rained on too. I made it through, and when friends are hard to find and life seems so unkind, sometimes you feel afraid, but rise beyond the clouds and something and start your own parade. And I'm like, you know what? That's where life is. Life is out from underneath that damn umbrella.
Yeah.
Under there, and you're filled with fear.
Well, and one of the things that Toxic Theology has mastered is the elimination of critical thinking.
Yes.
And I mean, I vividly remember the point where one of my coworkers said, "You ever looked into that?"
Right.
And I'm like, "But the Bible." And he's like, "What?"
Right.
And I mean, at that point, I was like, I didn't even know what I didn't know. I had taken advantage and taken so much trust into everything that was put inside of me. All of the indoctrination, the Christian schools, the Bible studies, the churches, everything. I never questioned it. I never thought to question it. I never thought, I mean, like when I learned, not figured out, that the Bible was based on about 300 years of debates.
Yes.
And they couldn't even agree in a historical record how many people were actually at these debates. It was like, wait a minute, the Bible was debated upon? Like we debate in Congress over our laws and type of actions. And to just discover that, I was raised in a Christian school where I received a stellar education in math and the Bible and English.
Yeah.
But I was so stupid. I was so stupid because I was never taught to actually think. I was taught to remember. I was taught to fear. I was taught to regurgitate all of the doctrine I could. And I was taught to make myself really small. Yes. And as a 6-foot woman with a voice that projects blocks away, I could not make myself any smaller than what they wanted me to.
Yeah.
I could only break out from there and be free. And again, I didn't love when I was in religion. Now I love. I do everything I can to love. And while God is love and Jesus loves me and all of these things were told, I was never told how to love my neighbor, only that they were dangerous, that they were going to be burning in hell, and I should save my own soul. All selfish, all fear, and all bullshit.
Yeah. And control. It's all about control, man.
It didn't make me a better person. It made me a worse person.
It did me too. It did me too. I'm so much nicer now.
Yeah.
I'm actually not a Karen anymore. I never was. I never was.
I wanted to say, I have started spelling Karens with a Q, to differentiate.
I like that.
Good, because I feel so bad for you guys. I'm called a Karen all the time, which just cracks me up. But, it's like, no, you got to put that Q there. You got to put that Q there. So you don't offend all the Karens.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I got the raw end of the deal when it comes to my.
You really did. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well.
Well, we are almost at the top of the hour. Anything else you want to cover? Anything else you want to say, or final thoughts?
I don't think so. I'm thankful. I'm thankful to be in this place. I'm thankful to meet you. It's been so cool to be able to, you think when you get out, like you think when you come out of it, when you're in the little bubble, that it's all awful people out there, all people you need to, you should be scared of. And it's just like, oh my gosh, the world is incredible.
Yeah,
There are
right?
so many nice people, like, and so many really smart people, like, and really, I'm just very thankful. And thank you for having me on, man. It's been
Well,
great.
thanks for coming on. I'm glad that Keith introduced us and sent you over my
Yeah.
new best friend.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Too much and not enough. Sacred thoughts said out loud. Let me get a glare. This lighting sucks in here. There we go. Go buy it. It's on Amazon. It's published by Choir. We've had a ton of choir authors on here, and they all deserve recognition. So thank you so much. Where can people find you?
KarenRuthSchock.com is my website. I'm on Facebook, just Karen, and Instagram, Karen Schock. Yeah.
I will be adding that to the YouTube thread, and it's already on the Facebook thread.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. And I have a new podcast, Sacred Thoughts.
Fantastic.
Sacred Thoughts podcast.
And where can they find your podcast?
It's on Apple and Spotify. It's on all of them, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at a podcast, whatever they choose.
Exactly.
So what is, as we close out, what would be the one bit of advice that you would offer someone suffering from toxic theology?
Yeah, I would say take a deep breath. Take lots of deep breaths. And actually, if you're watching this and you suffer from that, you're in the right place. And there's so many more of us out there. And if you just Google or find there's so many podcasts that are so good and so healing, and like this, like the Wild Goose Festival. There's so many places where you can go and meet people. Like, there's a whole world out here of us who are asking questions and who aren't going to judge you for any of your questions or wherever you land. We're not going to judge you for where you land when you have deconstructed. And none of us exactly know where we've landed either, right? Like, we're all, I said, I feel like my spirituality is fluid right now. Like, I don't know, teach me more, God. I'm whatever God, she, he, energy, whatever that is, it's okay. It's going to be all right.
I am okay with the uncertainty when the uncertainty used to scare me.
Certainly uncertain. That's what we are. We are
there you go.
Uncertain. And I love it.
And I think that we are proof that we're not all demons and evil people out there, that the church tries to scare you to say, don't go out there because you won't be met with love. And I think that we showed that you will be.
Yeah. Amen. Well, can I say amen?
Yeah. Of course.
So be it. So be it.
So be it. Thy will be done, O Lord.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karen. I am going to send you backstage and close the show. Stay tuned. I'll be right with you. I hope you guys got a lot out of that show. I will hopefully next week be more organized and have a little bit of a background, better lighting, because I'm here for the next 3 weeks and then back after Wild Goose. So I'm having a mobile show, and so bear with me. No fire for a while. Thank you so much for watching. As I close out my 100th show, I do so with honor and pride and love. Thank you. I will see you next week. As always, walk in love. Mwah! See you soon.